This is going to be a bit of a longer video, and the thing I really want to focus on is using your mast before using your foil. And this is in light wind beginners starting out and just trying to get something going on. And I'm going to show video of some people that are basically just trying to foil too soon. And if they concentrated on getting some board speed and focused on what the mast is doing. So first you got to be able to get the mast kind of being your buddy, your mast doing something so that you can sail. So the idea would be to get some board speed. The mast is actually going to start to generate some lift like a sailboat, and you'll have that lateral resistance that you can then work with to get, I'll say, board speed over and over. But work the mast first before you try to get going down the road of the foil. So the whole rest of the video is going to be about basically board speed, but I wanted to start off with saying, don't worry about foil first. Worry about actually utilizing your mast. I got some video from the beach at Denny yesterday. There's like 3 people that I was looking at. I'd say there were a couple of things that really stood out. The first is everybody's trying to point upwind to kind of stay even with the beach, but at the same time, you're pulling in with your backhand, and so you're really kind of getting dragged downwind by pulling in with your backhand. You're trying to get the sail more vertical, and so that's dragging you downwind, and then you're trying to point at the same time, and it's kind of like being in a sailboat and oversheeting the sailboat and trying to go upwind at the same time. You just stall out. I've got a video about like nursing around when there's no wind, and I'm gonna put that one up. But really trying to float the sail, float the wing over your head, and then slowly bring it in from the horizontal position to get yourself some board speed, and keep it floated. Don't pull it in until there's really enough to get you going, and then bear off to get some board speed. So you're going to see a lot of that. What I would say is sheeting in and going upwind, and the combination of those two are just stalling you out. You're not getting board speed. There was another thing I saw, which was too much weight on the back foot, and with the weight on the back foot, it's just going to, your angle of attack of the foil is going to be too high. It's just going to stall out. So there's the one gal that I look at, and she's really close. I mean, the wing's in a great position. She's got enough wind to do it. If the wind was a little bit, if her stance was a little bit more further forward, and her overhead was great, she slowly started to bring it in and bear off a little bit. So the problem on that one was just a little bit pointing into the wind when trying to sheet it in. And then at the very end of it, she kind of does a full-on pull straight upwind and then falls in. So I'll run the video and talk over the top of it too. But those are the big things I would say is it's almost like on a sailboat when you're sheeted in all the way and trying to point at the same thing. All you're going to do is end up stalling out and not get board speed. So it's all about getting board speed. So the guys are going out, and if you look at the waves, you can see that they're really pointed into the wind. And then when they're sheeting in at the same time, it's really hard to get moving. So I would say also, if you're like the guy in the front here, he's bringing it down in, he's pointing upwind, and he's basically just kind of almost sailing backwards. Neither one of these guys is getting any board speed. So if there's enough wind, holding on with the backhand is really kind of really not doing you a favor. You almost need to be able to let that wing float. And if you can float that wing, then you're not going to drift downwind in this kind of backward sailing motion. So if you let it float over, like you see over there, the gal over on that side, it's floating overhead. That's great. So she's not being dragged downwind, and she's got some board speed. So she's got it floated overhead. And if her problem here is she's still pointed, but she's better than the other guys. If she bear off a little bit, keep the front hand extended, and then slowly bring in the backhand to get some board speed, and then bear off, she's got a really good chance. But right now, she's kind of got her butt out a little bit, and she's pointing, and she's beginning to point more and more and more, and then she points and she falls in. So she's got a good chance. Actually, let's go back over there. She's got it overhead. She's going at a pretty good angle there, but then she starts to turn up, and you can see that a lot of weight on the back foot, so the foil is beginning to stall. But she get her weight forward, bear off a little bit, and then bring the wing down to get some board speed, and I think she could get going. The other guys, on the other hand, I think they either need a bigger wing or more wind. So let's go see. I think we're going to take a look. Okay, she's down. That's cool. That was pretty good. I think you probably you had a chance at it with the wind that was going on. So let's go back and look at these guys. They're definitely pointed too high. The wings are low. What would be great is, and I've got this on my 8 meters, I tie a string between the two handles and I get it overhead, and I don't bring it down until I've got some board speed. So if these guys, for number one, if you can float the wing overhead, get a little board speed, bear off a little bit, and just get moving, because you're not moving at all here. Get moving, and then start to bring it in, bear off a little bit, and then you've got a pretty good shot. I think definitely probably the wings are too small in this case, and I think also the sheeting of it in and standing up and going upwind, the combination of those things is really going to make it difficult. Again, in contrast, looked at the gal on the right. She's not losing any ground, and she has a lot more board speed, and it's because she's floating it overhead to get some board speed. So if we're standing up a little more, and she bear off and then start to bring it in, she's going to get closer to having the board speed. It's all about board speed to get this foil going underwater. So she's really good. And look how much faster she's going than the other guys. So it's all about speed. And her wing is sized right. It'll support itself. Where I think the other guys, I'm not quite sure that the wing will support itself. And for me, I'd just say if the wing won't float overhead, the chances for me of getting up are like next to zero. In Seattle, we're going to get a lot of days like this, so it's really important to be able to kind of not fall off the wind and manage this low wind situation. And for me, I don't even stand up until the wing is floating. If I can get the wing to float, then I'll start to bring it in and then stand up and go for it. So if it's like this, I wouldn't even stand up. I would stay down on the board. I've actually attached the video to the tail end of this about limping around with no wind. And so once the wind starts to hit, then I bring it in a little bit, stand up, bear off, and then give it a pump.
So it's light wind. Try to get I keep my sail kind of flat. Let's say there's some wind under it. Just let it float a little bit. If you immediately, especially if you stand up and do this, you're going to get blown downwind. But if you kind of keep it a little high, I'm going to go back down to the kneeling. If you keep it down high, you can get some board speed. And once you get some board speed, that's really what's going to keep you even. As soon as this starts to go more vertical like this, you're going to get blown downwind. So see if you can float it over your head more and just give yourself enough wind to get some board speed to move forward. Sometimes when it's really light wind, I'll hold it from the front handle and then right around that first handle just to kind of keep it floating, so that way you don't have too much of this downwind action happening, because that's what's going to take you downwind. Go for board speed and then also kind of lean up into the wind. That's what I would say would be my suggestions on how to stay upwind when it's light.
And that last video really kind of showed how I nurse it around when there's no wind. It also works when you're nursing it around trying to get up on wind. And so I'll hold it almost like that. If it was really light, I would hold it from that front grab handle and then the first forward handle, and just let it, again, float. And as soon as I start to get some power just from that floating, then I can bear off and start to get some speed. And then if I'm going and I've got some speed and I'm beginning to feel pull in the wing, then I start to switch over to the backhand and stand up. At that point, there's enough wind that I can pull myself up onto the board, or the wing will actually help pull me up on the board. But I definitely don't go to the back handle until it's floating and I bear off and I get some board speed, and then I go for the back handle. And then I have it overhead, and then I don't bring it down in until I'm starting to actually move. So again, for me, I'm no pro, but I've slogged around quite a bit on this, and being able to just float it, bring it in, and then get your speed up. And so if you get the speed up, that's really the chance. Actually, even when you get board speed up, you're going to be able to point better too. So I would say, even like the guys that were out yesterday, if they were just on their knees, floating, trying to get that wing to just float overhead, get some speed, and then at that point you're able to work the mast now, because the mast is actually being able to work like a sailboat. Don't even worry about the foil, worry about the mast part of it. Then you're able to kind of get yourself to go upwind a little bit even. So that's how you're going to stay even with it, is to get, again, I keep saying board speed. Get the board speed, and the mast is actually doing something. And then if there's enough wind, you can again stand up, like I just said, stand up, make your way out to that back handle. Don't go to the back handle too soon, because you're going to do what I've said over and over again about basically trying to power the thing up like a sailboat, pointing into the wind and sheeting in. You're not gonna move around. So in that last video, again, I say it's about moving around slowly when you don't have any wind, but it's also great for setting yourself up when you start to get enough wind and get the board moving. Because we're really talking about, the difference between like 1 mile an hour, which you saw with the guys, and getting closer to 4 or 5 miles an hour. Once you get close to 4 or 5 miles an hour of board speed, you're starting to get to a point where you've got enough flow over the foil that it's actually going to do some lift. Once I get my board up to about 6 miles an hour or 7 miles an hour, there's enough. At that point, there's going to be enough flow over the foil to generate the lift that'll get me up to a little bit of pumping with board speed of about 6 or 7 miles an hour. You're going to get there. The gal, she was probably around 4 miles an hour, 3 or 4 miles an hour, where the guys, they were just hanging out at like 1, So I know, long video, I hope it's helpful. And again, I'm no pro at any of these things, but I think I'm pretty good at observing what's going on, and hopefully the feedback will be helpful for you guys.